So the year 2023 wasn't about results. It was about growth through introspection, which is why, at least for me, there were a lot of big personal learnings for me to go through. Hi everyone, welcome to the Lead from Love podcast. I am Yalini, I am your host and love coach. Now, first of all, I just want to say thank you for joining me on this episode. I know it's been a while since the last one and it feels so good to be back. I really just wanted to make sure that I jump back in before the end of the year because this year has been wild. It has been fraught with challenges for myself personally, as well as the people that are close to me in my life. And so if you have gone through something similar, I just wanted to check back in, and I wanted to use this episode as an opportunity to share openly and vulnerably with some of the things that have been going on in my life, so that if you are going through or have gone through something similar, it gives you hope for a way forward. And I'm going to share some of the things that I learned through some of those hard moments, as well as wrap this episode up with 5 steps that you can implement today that doesn't have to take long, that can help you clear the slate from some of the baggage that has been going on this year so you don't bring it into next year, so you can actually claim a fresh start for yourself in 2024. What happened this year? You know, most of us start a new year full of hope and optimism and excitement for all of the incredible things that we desire to create and achieve. And that was definitely me. I started this year in a relationship. I was excited about my business. I had hired coaches to really support me in paving that path forward. I was motivated. I was full of energy. I was like, this is the year. I'm going to make big things happen. And I feel like this year has just been one major curveball after the other. Even my excitement and anticipation for the year, I mean, that only lasted a week or two before things just started to fall apart. There were big things going on for people really close to me in my life that required me to show up for them in a way where I essentially just put my life on pause. I dropped whatever I was doing and I showed up in the way that they needed, which I do not regret at all. I am so unbelievably grateful that they felt safe and comfortable enough with me to reach out and share what was going on and ask for help, because I don't take that lightly. And, you know, for me, I love deeply and I love fiercely. And I don't believe that love is just something that you show up for when it feels good. When you love someone, you show up for all of it. All of it. And so I have the ability to be there for some of those really tough moments, to the extent that I can sacrifice myself in the process. And so that's been a really big learning for me. And I'm sharing this with you because I know I'm not the only one that loves that way. And I think especially as women, we can almost forget ourselves in the process of serving someone else and being there for someone else, which I still think is an amazing quality. But sometimes it gets to the point where your cup is empty and you can't take care of someone properly when you have run out of fuel. And so something that was really difficult for me to learn this year was also knowing when to step back and accepting that sometimes helping people is actually doing less. Because when you try and pick up all of the pieces for them, when you try and do all of the things, you're also disempowering them because they're not building their resilience. You know, sometimes when we know that someone is there and available to us, it lets us off the hook because we know that we don't really have to push through. And so a really tough learning for me was to go, okay, actually, I can't do it all. I can't. And that was hard because I felt like I failed. I felt like my love failed, that I couldn't fix things for everyone, that I couldn't make everything better. And even though that can be hard to accept, sometimes that's a really important step, because even loving and helping people, we're not supposed to do it all on our own. We need a community of people around us, of different people that we can lean on in our times of need, because no one person can do it all. Try as you might. It's not your responsibility to carry all of that weight and all of that burden and all of that responsibility. And you're not doing someone a favor by doing it all. Maybe, for a very short period of time, that's what's needed. But as time passes for weeks or months, you stop them from stepping up. Depending on the situation, of course, this isn't absolute, but I know that through what I experienced, that was definitely becoming the case, even though it was health related. And so sometimes the most loving act is to have those hard conversations and go, I love you, but I can't keep showing up like this. And it doesn't mean just walking away, but it means stepping back a little bit and showing up in a different way so that you can fill your cup up, but you are also encouraging and requiring them to make the necessary changes so they also heal and step up. Because showing up in the way that I did, it took a toll in so many different areas of my life. It meant that I didn't show up for my business. I didn't show up for so many important things in my life. And it meant that it took a toll on my relationship, which ended just weeks after. And I have no regrets. That was also a relationship where, although there were some really incredible parts and elements to it, it wasn't the right relationship for me. So I'm grateful that life happened in such a way that it cleared the slate of things that aren't supposed to be in my life moving forward, but it doesn't make it easier. I was still stuck with the grief and the burden of having to process that relationship in a space where I didn't have the capacity to process that relationship. So I started the year thinking it's going to be amazing and I'm motivated and I have big goals. And within the first few weeks, there were health problems and big things going on for people really close to me, where I ended up putting my whole life on pause. I ended up going through a breakup. I wasn't focusing on my business. I wasn't doing the things that I needed to do in all of my day-to-day life. And I felt like I was just losing myself. And then as I continued to pick myself up and keep going, it just felt like more things kept happening. And, the coaches I had that I thought were great ended up fraught with a whole set of different challenges, which I didn't have the energy or desire to deal with, but I had to. And I had to make some really tough decisions and walk away and deal with the contracts and a whole bunch of things in that space. And then my mum's place got broken into, and so she ended up living with me, and I shared elements of that story in an earlier episode around challenging parents. This year has just been one thing after the other, and I'm not going to go through all the details of all of those things, but I think you get the idea. And the reason I'm sharing so many different aspects of these elements is because beyond learning to find balance in the way that I love, so that I don't completely lose myself and ultimately can serve everyone's highest good, I also had to learn the lesson, or a deeper lesson, around vulnerability. I shared in episode 1 some parts of my story where, I grew up with abuse, I grew up with violence, I grew up with poverty, and I grew up so scared of relying on anyone because I just thought I would be constantly let down, that I just went through this life feeling really lonely. And one of the benefits of feeling alone is that you become really strong and really resilient, which is something I'm so grateful for, because deep down, I have this absolute unwavering belief that I can make it through anything. But doing it on my own was hard. And so what I had to unlearn is that being independent was strong. Because although independence is great, what I believe now is that true strength comes from vulnerability, from letting people in, from saying that you're having a hard moment and that you need help, because I don't see that as weakness anymore. I actually think that that is the most courageous act. And that is how we move forward through life, by sharing stories, because it doesn't matter what you go through. I genuinely don't believe that any of us are here to do this life on our own. We need a community of people around us, and we need love. And not because you aren't capable, but because this is where you get to lift one another up, build deeper connections, and rise up together. And so through some of these hard moments this year, I learned to get really vulnerable. I learned to share in such a raw way with the people in my life that even I couldn't believe. And sometimes it's easier to do that when you're at your wit's end. You don't have the energy to hold it together anymore. And so you fall apart. And I did that spectacularly over and over again this year. It's been one of the most challenging and ironically one of the most amazing years of my life, because of all of the things I learned and all of the ways that I healed. But I can't imagine having done that without the love of my family and my friends, because when I say I was vulnerable in a raw way, I mean I had so many conversations with them on the phone where I was literally screaming and crying with pain and overwhelmed with all of the things that were going on in my life, because it just felt like it was constantly being turned upside down. And I couldn't get my footing on any form of foundation that was stable. And it was a lot, and it was hard, and it was scary at moments, and it was just hard. It was so hard. And I am so grateful for the love I have around me and the people that I have around me, because I honestly can't imagine having gotten through this year without them. And the way they showed up is such a gift to me, because I've never felt more loved and supported. And I'm sharing this because I know that vulnerability can be hard. I've been there. Oh my God, it has been such a learning for me. And I know that saying things like I'm struggling can feel really difficult. But unless you reach out to the people around you, it can make our own lives harder. And it also means that we miss out on the support and the connection that exists all around us. Because just like I had to show up for people close to me at the start of the year, although that might have been challenging, I was so honored to have been there. And I am so glad I was there. I don't regret, I would never take any part of that back. That was a gift for me. Which I know might sound strange to say, but it is, because I also got to feel closer to them. I was gifted the ability to love them in a way that they hadn't let me do before. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for those moments and those memories that we share and that love that was created. And in turn, I also got to be loved with the people in my life to help me get through this year. sometimes you need those moments because that's when you know you are loved. Because when people show up for you and continue to hold that space in your darkest hours, in the worst of your worst, and continue to love you, that's when you know you have something real in your life. And that's also where you get to be infused with strength and support to keep going. And so I want you to know that no matter what happens in life, if you choose to be vulnerable, you'll never have to feel lonely again, ever. And so I've spent the year moving through a lot of different things and a lot of ups and downs. And there have been a lot of ups. There have been so many beautiful highlights with memories I've created with friends and with experiences in my personal life and with my business and with clients. And oh my gosh, my clients light me up, and I'm so grateful for them because honestly, the changes that they make inspire me to keep going. So I am so grateful to all of you for the role and impact that you have had on my life. But even through all the highs, sometimes we don't completely clear all of the baggage. And so I wanted to share with you 5 steps that you can implement to help you clear the slate from this year. Because, I've spent this whole year talking and working through my stuff and constantly having to pick myself back up and feeling the love and support of the people around me. But ultimately, I've also still had to carry the burdens of all of the things that have been going on. And, as much as I've talked through things and breathed and done as much healing as I can, I also realized that for me, I've gotten to the end of this year and I am tired. I am exhausted and I cannot put an end to 2023 fast enough. I am so looking forward to a clean slate for next year. And so as an executive contributor to Brains Magazine, I pulled together an article around clearing the slate on 2023 so you start your new year right. And I'll put the link to the article in the notes, but I wanted to share it with you because even though I write these things and I share learnings, I'm also going to be the first to admit that sometimes I don't want to do the work. Sometimes I just really don't. I am tired. I don't feel like I have time and I feel exhausted. And, I've been working on myself all year. So I'm just like, well, haven't I ticked this box already? Haven't I achieved this in some way, shape or form? I don't want to do this anymore. But the truth is, if that's where my energy is at, then I need it now more than ever. And so I'm going to go through these 5 steps with you because the first one was a real game changer for me. Step 1 is purposeful reflection. Because if 2023 was hard for you like it was hard for me, then you're probably focusing on all of the things that you didn't achieve, or all of the ways that you failed, all of the things that you didn't do right, all of the things that went wrong this year. And that can feel really low. And so what I had to do was actually rewrite the narrative on my year, because I don't want to start the next year judging myself for a terrible year and judging myself for how much I failed and didn't achieve and how I'm not good enough, because that's a waste of my time and my energy. That doesn't support me to take that next step. So purposeful reflection is about going, okay, what are all the stories that I have playing out in my mind around what wasn't good enough, where I failed, where I didn't show up the way that I should have? And then taking those thoughts and putting it on paper with a new story. And instead of focusing on the failures or the unmet goals, it's about focusing on, what did I learn? How did I grow this year? What were the challenges that I overcame? What did I learn about myself? And putting it out on paper with this new story and being able to see those new stories unfold, that can be really powerful because you can't deny what you see. And so taking a moment to take stock of these new stories, it almost shocked me because I saw that list grow and I realized that I was focusing on maybe 2-3 things that weren't good enough when I had a list of like 10, 15, 20 things that were amazing. It was my reality hit that I was just focusing on the wrong thing, because if you don't learn something from the challenging times, then it's a wasted opportunity. And I don't want to repeat the same problems over and over again. So step 1 is taking the opportunity to rewrite the stories that you hold on your year so you can actually acknowledge what you have achieved despite those stumbling blocks, despite those challenges, despite all those difficulties, because you have shown up in real and amazing ways and you deserve to recognize that. Step 2 is creative expression for emotional release. And, if you're like me and you are good at talking about your problems and analyzing them and sharing them and processing them to the nth degree, you might think that you've sufficiently cleared it, because that's where I was at. I thought, but I've spoken all year. How much more can I do? And so what I love about the creative expression is that it's not about analyzing anything anymore. It's not about getting caught up in the stories. It's not about understanding why you feel how you feel or what you went through and what you'll do differently. Sometimes it's just about moving blocked energy in a way where you don't have to think. You just allow your body and its own intuition to flow. And so the process of creative expression is basically picking up some coloring pencils and putting them to paper and seeing what flows out of you. Because what flew out of me was not what I expected. I wanted the dark colors. I wanted the blacks and the dark purples and the dark blues. And I just wanted to just scroll all over the page, not drawing anything specifically, but just scribbling and almost ripping the paper as I went about it. Because what I realized through this process is that I had so much pent up rage from the year. I was so angry and mad that it didn't turn out the way I wanted. And my body just wanted to release that in a way that it hadn't before. And here's what's really interesting, because it can feel scary doing that sometimes because you think the anger is getting away with you. And I was just scribbling with all of these colors and writing all of these words until my body reached a tipping point, because you can't stay in that emotion and that depth for too long. And so your nervous system kicks in to self-regulate and to heal. It had to pull me out of it. Not in a way that was blocking the flow, but that was actually clearing it. And so what I realized is at a certain point, the colors I wanted to move towards were different. It went towards the orange and the yellow and the pink, and the way that I was moving that pencil on paper shifted. It was gentler. I was drawing different things, writing different words, and it shifted something inside of me that felt so much more profound and liberating. And so it's easy to dismiss something like this if you haven't done it before, but why not gift yourself the experience and see where it takes you? Because you might just have a profound release like I did. And through that process, I was then ready for step 3, which was mindful farewell ritual. And this might sound familiar to something that you've heard or perhaps done before, where it's essentially going, okay, what are all of the things that I thought went wrong this year, or that I am so ready to leave behind? And I wrote it out on a piece of paper with the intent of letting it go. Because there is something that happens when you write on paper that is a form of release. And then once you have it all written on a piece of paper, actually taking a moment to burn it and visualizing in that moment that as the flames and the smoke goes up in the air, that it is being lifted up and off and away from you, because there is something in that release that can be so liberating to your spirit in a way that you feel lighter and with a renewed sense of hope. And so once I had done, the purposeful reflection of changing the narrative of my year, of drawing it out through creative expression, whatever pent up energy I had left, and then doing the farewell ritual by burning that piece of paper, I was left with step 4. And honestly, this was actually a tough one for me. The way I originally wrote it was for self-forgiveness as an act of compassion, where all you needed to do was just write a list of all of the things you now forgive yourself for. Now that you've been able to let go of some of those old stories and created a space for release, just write down what you forgive yourself for. And that seemed great in theory, but that wasn't enough for me, because what I found is that I didn't actually believe it. It looked like a list of things that I would like to forgive myself for, but I didn't forgive myself. I was still holding on to it. I needed something else. So what I added to this step was a meditation prayer. And the reason I added this is because sometimes you need something outside of yourself. Sometimes we don't have the strength or the courage or the know-how on how to heal and let something go because it feels too big inside of us. Because the reality is, no one will judge you as harshly as you judge yourself. Because I know I have an incredibly critical voice inside of me. And so I struggled to let go of that self-judgment and actually complete self-forgiveness. And so this meditation prayer that I've added in step 4 is what helped me cross over to that other side, because I needed help and I had to ask for that help. So I had the list and then I did this meditation prayer, and this is how it goes. And again, I'll link the article in the show notes so you can read it in your own time. But this is the meditation prayer that I added. Higher self, guide me to the source of my feelings and thoughts about all of the beliefs you've written down that you want to forgive yourself for. Infuse every cell, every atom, every fiber of my existence with divine love, transmuting and perfectly releasing these old beliefs. Grant me the grace to forgive myself for these misbeliefs. Support me in forgiving all people, places, and circumstances that contributed to my feelings and thoughts. Cleanse my aura until it radiates with only pure love and light as I move forward on my path of healing. And you can sit with this process for as long as you need until it feels complete for you. You can repeat it if you need, whatever feels right for you. Because for me, once I did that, what I realized was all of those things I had on that list, it felt so trivial. It felt like none of that mattered anymore. It gave me new perspective and the space to breathe and just let it go. And then once you've done that, step 5 is vision boarding. Now, I know a lot of you may have done vision boards before. It's really just about gathering words and pictures that represent what you desire to create for 2024, for this next year, all of your hopes and your aspirations and your goals. And you can either do that physically on an actual canvas, which I think is more powerful, or you can do it digitally, whatever is right and perfect for you. But it's really just gifting yourself the experience of putting all of those desires in the one place. It is such a powerful way to create manifestations for the next year and to set your heart and your intent and your focus for what you truly desire to bring in. Because I don't know about you, but I am not repeating 2023 for next year. I would much rather leave all of this stuff behind and start the new year right. And so one last thing that I want to add to this is something that I discovered the other day, which just made me feel so much better. So I want to share this with you in case you also find it helpful. The year 2023, if you break it down and reduce it to one number in numerology, it comes down to a number 7. And in numerology, the number 7 is all about inner work and self-discovery through reflection and spending time inwards. So the year 2023 wasn't about results. It was about growth through introspection, which is why, at least for me, there were a lot of big personal learnings for me to go through. But here's where it gets better. 2024 comes down to the number 8. And in numerology, the number 8 is all about abundance. It is about success and karmic lessons and stepping into your power. So it means 2024 is about achievements. It's the year of taking responsibility for your own actions and putting in the work to create the life that you have been dreaming of. This is the year where you receive back what you have been putting in. And I wanted to add that in there for you because whatever has happened this year, through these 5 steps, I hope that you realize that you have still achieved some incredible things, that it was not all a waste, that you can let go of some of those burdens of whatever baggage you have been carrying, to let go of that blame game, to forgive yourself, and to really set the scene for next year. Because we all deserve this fresh start. No matter what's happened for you this year, you get to start again in 2024. And so I truly hope that this episode helps you in clearing that slate and claiming the fresh start that you deserve. Because I truly believe that you didn't go through all of this for nothing. When we go through hard things, it's for our own personal growth and our own personal evolution, which means it has to get better. It absolutely has to. And if you do not have that faith or that belief or that strength within yourself, then borrow mine. Because whatever you have gone through this year, there is something better in store for you. And I'm so excited and hopeful for all of the amazing things that are coming all of our way. So I just want to wish you a happy new year, and I'm looking forward to reconnecting with you in 2024.